Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Hi there, ho there, hey there. Welcome to the Monday edition of the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends, and good morning to you. Are you ready to go? Are you ready? Are you ready already? Let's get this thing going, huh? Let's get it going. It's a Monday morning, and it's a beautiful, 37 degrees outside the old studios here in the beautiful Matsu Valley. It is, spring is sprung. Spring has sprung. Fingers crossed I didn't just jinx it. That's all I'm saying. Hoping it's good. Hoping you had a great weekend and a good restful time. I know I did. I think I slept 14 hours or something on Friday night, Saturday. It was beautiful. It was beautiful, man. Beautiful. All right. We're ready to get into it and get things rocking and rolling here for Monday. In hour one, we've got a bunch of headlines to cover and some thoughts that I've got about some of the things that are going on around the country and the world and just kind of everywhere. And then in hour two, we're going to pick it up with State Senator Robb Myers, who's going to be joining us to talk about some of the things that are going on in the legislature and we're going to get his thoughts on the commentary from the Fairbanks School Board President, who essentially accused Robb and a couple other folks of taking a $70,000 bribe, which would be no. Anyway, we'll get Robb's hot take on that. Remember last week we were basically saying that Brandy Hardy needed to step down over that because that was just, that was some nutty stuff. She was fine in her condemnation up to a point, and then she just run right off the rails, and it was crazy. All right, so anyway, we're going to be talking with Robb Myers in hour two of the program today, and we look forward to seeing what's coming up there. So what do we got today? Well, there's some interesting stuff that's happened over the weekend. First and foremost, like I said, I many years ago decided to kind of disconnect myself from the internet news over the weekend because I just found myself becoming I was an angry man, folks. Anyway, but even I heard about the terrorist attack in Russia at the concert hall, where now they say something like 134 plus people have been killed and everything else. So we'll chat about that real quick and get some info on that. The House has passed a new budget. They've got a draft budget. And this is a starting point. Delana Johnson from the House Finance Committee has restated that many times and in many ways. It keeps saying, by the way, this is just, this is going to change. This is going to do this. This is going to do that. So we'll talk about what that and what so far the reaction has been on this, because there's been some pushback. On the House on that. A new amendment was foisted onto Sarah Vance's bill about protecting young people from sexual assault. And it was a handwritten amendment, and it's kind of creating some issues. We're going to talk about that as well. And then finally, there's a new study out from UAA, Matthew Berman, who we've talked about in this program several times, where he talks about the taxation of the PFD and some other things, has a new study that shows that teacher salaries in Alaska are not competitive compared to national averages when taking into account the cost of living, which, it's probably no surprise to everybody that there's a difference with the cost of living and everything else. So we'll try and see if we can squeeze that one in as well today as we go through all the different stories. But I guess we'll start off with this. the CEO of Boeing, after the door plug incident and now another incident of a 737-800 with a missing panel under a United Airlines flight as it arrived on its destination here recently, showing panels being blown out, et cetera, et cetera. The CEO of Boeing, Dave Calhoun, is going to step down from re-election, or step down at the end of the year after a series of mishaps at one of our most long-lived and well-known manufacturers. Board Chair Larry Kellner has also told the company he doesn't plan to stand for re-election. Boeing also said that Monday, Stan Deal, president and CEO of its commercial airlines unit, will retire, and now Stephanie Pope is going to lead that division. The FAA has put the company under intense scrutiny and recently ordered an audit of assembly lines at a Boeing factory near Seattle, where the company builds the planes like the 737 MAX that suffered a door panel blowout on January 5th. Investigators have said that the bolts that kept the panel in place were missing after repair work at the Boeing factory. The incident raised scrutiny of Boeing to its highest level since two plane crashes of the 737 MAX jet in 2018 and 2019 killed 349 people. Shares at Boeing rose more than 2% with the market open when they heard this. So, this is definitely a rallying cry of Boeing trying to save itself from a lot of problems. There's been some serious contention going on in there. And I guess this is the reaction. The market has spoken, and here we go. It's, and I guess as it should be, there should be, they should be a reckoning for what happened and what took place there, especially since this is not the first incident of problems at Boeing with the manufacturing process and the safety records there. So not a big shock as far as that goes. No, and only in Fairbanks. I saw this story this morning and I was like, wow. So an interior man has been arrested after a search of his home revealed a cache of drugs and stolen goods. This guy. Fairbanks resident Kevin Shank, 46 years old, was arrested on charges of misconduct involving a controlled substance and misconduct involving weapons. The Fairbanks Area Narcotics Team and Fairbanks Criminal Suppression Unit served the search warrant on Shank Tuesday following a months-long investigation. During the search, they subsequently located narcotics valued between $1 and $1.5 million, which included over 11 kilos of meth, a kilo of fentanyl powder, 2 kilos of M130 fentanyl pills, a kilo of cocaine, 30 grams of heroin, several Suboxone strips, and to top it all off, just to even him out, is a glass jar of Xanax pills. Because, of course, I mean, like, wow. In addition, he was found to have in his possession 7 firearms, 2 prohibited suppressors, a smoke grenade, and several 5-gallon buckets and totes of marijuana, along with pieces of stolen jewelry, pieces of stolen property, rather, and approximately $150,000 worth of suspected stolen tools and thousands of dollars of new clothing. So he was well-dressed, well-armed, and well-soused. I mean, he had everything. I mean, wow. I mean, just this welcome, way to go. The Fairbanks Area Narcotics Team statewide drug enforcement unit, which is a mouthful, is comprised of members of the troopers, the DEA, the Fairbanks Police, the Airport Police, the North Pole Police, the North Slope Police, and the FBI. So he's been taken to the Fairbanks Correctional Center, where he probably will not be seeing daylight for a while on this stuff. But I mean, this guy's got the laundry list of drugs and everything else, but he is well dressed. All these brand new clothes. I mean, it's just, wow. Just wow. We'll see what happens there. But okay. Let's we're gonna continue this discussion on this and more this morning. We've got a lot of stuff to go over. I want to talk a little bit about this one-page handwritten amendment that was put in by Andrew Gray, because, I mean, while I understand, I guess in concept what he was trying to do, he's betting on a lot of intent, which he's actually been quoted as saying that the intent of this, that I wrote it down as a one-line thing. And there's a reason why these things usually go through legal, because they touch on so many things. And he got this thing to pass. And I've got questions. About it, and I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens here. Maybe we'll get some more input on this as we go through. But that's what's coming up right now. We're going to continue. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Again, don't forget, Robb Myers will be joining us at the top of the hour. And we'll be back. We'll be back right after this.
What is that?
Common sense.
Regularly heard on American radio.
Michael Duke Show.
Radio.
Okay. Good morning, my friends. How was you? How's you doing? How's you doing? Huh? Let me. I'm sorry. I'm trying to connect this right here. Just in case. We need to. All right. Okay. We're all good here. All right. Let's go over to the chat room and see what you guys have been talking about here this morning. Did I get my wall fixed? I don't think you're talking to me. Another beautiful morning in Fairbanks. Yep. Good morning. Good morning. How was your Easter, says Terry. I'm a little confused, Terry. Did you celebrate early? Because that's Easter is this Sunday. Good morning. ACLU and House Education this AM presenting a in-house CRA tomorrow, Community and Regional Affairs tomorrow morning. Okay. Someone asked me, I just read an article about the legislators writing in a bill amendment that raises the age of consent. Are they really wanting to make the 18-year-old high school student that has sex with a 17-year-old a felon who has to register as a sex offender? I guess I don't understand how the change will help protect the children. The article didn't really explain the purpose or how it will help. I don't think this amendment was passed. Okay. Well, maybe, Kevin, if you want to call my cell phone and comment on this in the next segment or the final segment of this hour, I can get some of your take on this, because I'm a little concerned about this, that they just kind of rush this thing through without any legal review. And the fact that changing the definition in one spot can create conundrums down the road for other spots. And yes, especially given the fact that 18-year-olds are included in this. 18, yes, I have a problem with this in that regard. So I guess, I'd like to know more. I'm going through here. It's so frustrating to have a state corporation that's not contributed in the general fund. They do have a good job of funding themselves and manage to keep things afloat, COVID, et cetera. But what have they done for the state? Okay. All right. I think I'm all caught up. It seems as they got the suppliers, says Jeffrey. Now let's get the dealers. Okay. Brian had an early Easter. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Brian. Are you reporting on your early Easter? I'm just wondering what's going on. Okay. We're all good. We're all caught up. So, seriously, I take it he's not an illegal. No, I mean, I don't think so. That was not mentioned in the story. But, I mean, like I said, he was well-dressed and well-armed, and well-sauced with all that stuff. He had all the party favors. So, we'll see what $1.5 million worth of drugs in his house. Okay. Well, there you go. Good job. Anyway, Brian screwed up. Apparently, Brian cannot read a calendar, says Brian. So, I mean, yeah. Apparently not. I'm going to talk about this handwritten amendment, and we'll see what goes on from there. Are you with me, Kev?
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thanks.
Good. Well, let's talk about this. Let me give it a little bit of a setup, and then I'll come over to you. Okay. So I'll be right back to you. Rep. Kevin McCabe on the phone right now with us to discuss this a little further, which is fitting since he's on the headline. He's on the front page of the ADN, or the article of the ADN, arguing, it looks like, with Andrew Gray about the amendment. So let's see what the deal is here. We'll get back to this here in just a second. Like and share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all this stuff. Let's do it.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Yep. Yep. All right, let's get into this. So the Alaska House of Representatives, had some unexpected moves on Friday as it went to raise the state's age of sexual consent from 16 to 18. It was a proposal from Representative Andrew Gray that was essentially written on a sheet of paper in a single sentence and was hotly debated, but ultimately approved 32-6 as the House Bill 264 was scheduled for a final vote today. Now, HB 264 is a bill from Sarah Vance that would require children who are being sexually abused, and so it would require state agencies to screen them for being sexually abused. And during the debate, he introduced an amendment that modifies the definition of abuse targeting a minor. Under current state law, if someone older than 18 has sex with someone who's younger than 16, it's considered abuse of a minor, punishable by up to 99 years. Under Gray's amendment, somebody older than 18 would be prohibited from having relations with anyone younger than 18, with some exceptions, including one that said if you're 18, you could still marry someone as young as 16 and have sex. But how provincial of these guys. 18. So, I mean, there's no question about the 18 and 17-year-old, boyfriend, girlfriend combo. That would be problematic. The amendment was hurriedly scrawled by hand in order to meet a deadline. Gray said he was referring to Ledge Legal when he said, this is how fast I could write. Everyone knows I was waiting for Ledge Legal and they just couldn't get the amendment done in time. And he says, my intent is to have the amendment do what I spoke about on the floor and raise the age of consent. I believe that's what everyone voted on. So wait, everybody just voted on intent? We know that intent language is non-binding. Only the actual verbiage of the bill is non-binding. And again, it doesn't get any further into this. Anyway, so Sarah Vance raises a question about what it's going to cost, because there's going to be a cost if you're trying to expand the screening, for beyond 16 years old. And she said there were some estimates that it put the cost at about $4 million based on a conversation she'd had with the Department of Public Safety. And he was like, who cares? Who cares how much it costs to protect our 16 and 17-year-olds? Well, I mean, there's a cost to every... Anyway, this is an interesting take, but I do have some questions and some concerns about this. Even Ben Carpenter warned that legislators shouldn't vote for an amendment whose text doesn't match their intent. The actual, what's the verbiage here? I was looking for the actual verbiage of the handwritten. Oh, it's on the other story. I got two different stories here. Here's the single sentence amendment. Being 18 years of age or older, the offender engages in sexual penetration with a person who is under 18 years of age instead of 16. That's the only change, which doesn't really... I've got questions. Anyway, let's go over to the phones. Representative Kevin McCabe is here, which I think is appropriate since the ADN's got a picture of him what looks like a heated conversation with Andrew Gray over this amendment on the floor during a break. Representative McCabe joins us right now to discuss and give us his thoughts on this. So, Kevin, I mean, I have concerns, my friend, with this. If you've got an 18-year-old son or daughter who might be dating someone who's 17, and they happen to, to do the deed or whatever, I mean, we got some problems here. There are some serious liability issues.
Right. Good morning, Michael. So, I mean, this is what happens. And, I tried to do this a couple times when I was a freshman as well, tried to put things in on the fly based on emotion. And, you oftentimes on the floor, you grab a statute book and you look up the statute and you have something on your heart that you're deciding that you want to do. And so you look up the statute and decide, well, here's a case where it says 16 and I'm just going to insert 18 in here. Ledge Legal, when they do that, they look up all the statutes and they look up all the things that can be affected and they look up, they do everything, and then you run it through committee and DPS comments. So there's a process for doing these types of very large, impactful things, and on the floor, on the fly is not the way to do it. So, it's definitely an issue. It has some far-reaching effects in other statutes, and I didn't think it should be done. And Andrew was kind of angry at me. He also didn't change the title when he first put the amendment in, so there needed to be an amendment to the amendment, which Representative Eastman put forward to change the title. If we could have killed that, then the whole amendment that Rep. Gray put in would have been nonsensical. It just wouldn't have fit. So there's a number of ways to try to kill it. There's still more out there. I understand Andrew's heart for this and trying to protect children and everything, but it's sort of hypocritical to do it this way and not worry about the LGBTQ groomers in middle school and that sort of thing. So, you know, I just wish they were as hard over on protecting children, which is what he was screaming at me when you see him waving his hands in my face there, kind of. And he's protecting children in one case, but we're not protecting children in the other case. So, anyways, lots going on with that, and I agree, it's a horrible way to do business.
Well, again, just with the as vague as the language is, I mean, he's essentially just changing the age in the current law. But again, what does this law do, and what is it? How many other laws does it touch on? And we see that, for example, when we see ballot propositions. When a ballot proposition changes something, and then they've got like the ballot measure 2, 37 pages of the other laws that it touches. That's part of this problem. Is now we've created an issue. This is what we call the unintended consequences of these bills going through. And I got to ask a question. Is this, and maybe his heart's in it, and I'm not trying to besmirch his intent here, because he has a heart to try and protect children or anything. But later on in the KTUU, it quotes a comment from Calvin Schreggy where he says, we've seen all the time amendments offered by both the majority and minority members to bills that stray maybe slightly from the original topic of the bill. I think we've all seen what happened in SB 140. All sorts of things were not in line, talking about how this was in the intent of the bill. And so, I mean, is this just kind of the same? Is this payback on that same kind of thing? Were they intentionally trying to, to derail this bill by offering amendments outside of the scope of it, or what? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't think so. I think what we see here is Sarah Vance has a very good, very necessary bill that's going to pass. And I see Andrew Gray thinking maybe his bill, which he has to do exactly what he just did. He has a bill in judiciary right now. He just hasn't asked to have it heard or moved. But, he sees a way to get his bill stuffed in there that will pass. Because Sarah's bill, before he put this in there, it stood a very good chance of passing. Now I'm not so sure, but that's what he's doing. He's not paid. It's not payback or anything. It's just leveraging a good bill to put your bill that might not have a prayer of passing into. So that's right. It's a strategy. It's as Sarah said, and like I said on the floor, it has there's a reason this process is the way it is. It's messy, it's long. You have a bunch of people come in, you have the DPS commissioner come in, say, this is how we'll handle this 2-year raise in age. This is the consequences, this is the cost. You have, legal come in, Department of Law come in and say, this is how we will handle this. Craig Taylor, Attorney General, or Skidmore, or somebody come in and say, this is how we're going to do this. And then you have a full understanding of what raising the age limit 2 years does and the unintended consequences and the other statutes that it affects. Then you get the bill properly crafted, and then you move it out. Just putting in a 2-year increase to an age limit in one section of the bill is in doing it with emotion instead of sort of the logic idea.
Right.
That's always going to cause problems.
Because Sarah makes the point, and is quoted in the KTUU article, she makes the point that House Bill 264 is not a crime bill. It's a bill that would require the Department of Family and Community Services to develop a shared screening methodology to screen children for sexual exploitation. This amendment, she says, relates to a crime. It's a heavy policy that she said, I believe, needs great deliberation. And again, we just made one example of it. But, I mean, there's other examples of it. You can be emancipated at the age of 16. If your parents are, you know, useless people and you want to go out on your own or whatever, and you can convince a judge that you need to be emancipated. Now you're 16 or 17 years old and you're out on your own. Does that mean you can't have a relationship with somebody without endangering them and making them a felon? I mean, I could see a lot of problems with this just right off the bat. And so while I understand his thoughts in protecting, kids, at the same time, I mean, there's got to be some more thought into this. Now, it's not done. The amendment's passed, but the bill itself has not passed. Is that correct, right?
Right. We put it into third, so it'll be heard this morning, probably on the floor, unless the speaker rolls it. So, there's still a chance that we could move to take it back to second and add a different amendment or clean up that amendment somehow. And there's a huge chance now that the bill itself is not going to pass. So it's an important bill, and I'm not so sure how Sarah is going to handle that. But you're exactly right. Consider, here's a boyfriend girlfriend, and they're both 17, but the boyfriend turns 18 months before the girlfriend does. And now is he going to be a sexual predator felon that has to be a sex registry person for the rest of his life? Those are the things that we would have to consider, and that would have been considered had this gone through the full-blown committee process.
Well, and I guess my question then becomes, I mean, how much of a problem is this really? I mean, how many people are we talking about it being affected, and that would justify this kind of slipshod, high speed, let's just get it passed to kind of figure out what's in it. And that's the thing. We could talk about intent all day long. We've talked about framers' intent. I mean, for the permanent fund, for example, they said, the framers' language says right in there, they intend the dividend be first call on the state's finances. The dividend should be first call, but everybody ignores it. So intent language is great, but there is no intent here. It's just this one sentence. And it doesn't matter what you talked about on the floor. It doesn't matter what arguments were made in the session. It doesn't matter what anybody actually says. It matters what the verbiage says that got passed. Nothing else matters, right?
Right. And keep in mind, it's not one sentence. It's one number. So that sentence is already in statute. All he did was change the number from 16 to 18. And I mean, without a look into a deeper dive into all the other statutes that it affects, you have no idea what you've just done. So, yeah, it's very, very frustrating, and I'm hopeful that we find a better way to deal with it. So,
yeah, I'm just a little concerned about it. Now, talk to me about the process. Because you can't go back and revisit the amendment, right? Because that would be dilatory, because it's already been decided, that quote unquote. It would have to be another amendment, or walk me through, as you understand the process itself. What would happen in today? Whether if it gets referred back again to the second, what would happen there? Give me the rundown.
Yeah, so it's in third reading right now, and the normal process would be we debate and vote on the bill without putting any amendments into it. So we would debate the bill as amended, which may or may not happen. I haven't talked to the speaker in a day or so, so I'm unclear of what her intents are, or the rules chair. So there could be another amendment put in that mitigates this one. There could be, it still has to go to the Senate, so a lot depends on what happens over there, and they could certainly roll it to another day, and roll it to the next day's calendar, and see see if there's a way to bring it back to second and put a different amendment in. So now's the time when we would have to engage Ledge Legal and the Department of Law and DPS, sort of in emergency sessions, if you will, and find out if there's a possible way that we can fix what he did, or fix that amendment. And people at some point, the discussion on the floor got so emotional that people voted for it. on emotion. Hey, I have daughters, I don't want my daughter, or I have young kids and I don't want my, less than 18-year-old kids subjected to this. And it's at some point, it just becomes this emotional thing, and you can see the emotion in Andrew's face when he's hollering at me.
Yeah, no,
And
he looks a little revved up on that for sure. At some
yeah,
point, what I found what was interesting was that despite the notes of caution, the House voting board rapidly lit up green when lawmakers voted on the amendment, and after hitting 21 votes, the minimum needed for adoption, many legislators who spoke against it changed their votes from no to yes. And I'm just like, it's already passed.
right. Yeah.
I mean,
So
I just don't even understand that mindset of if it's wrong, it's wrong. And again, not that it's wrong to change the age. I don't. If we want to discuss that, that's a discussion to have. But to do it
right.
on a handwritten thing with no backstory, with no fiscal note, with no discussion with the people who enforce the laws, with no discussion of the unintended consequences of all the other statutes that this touches. I mean, I'm just shaking my head at this point.
Right. Well, at the end of the day, it's do you give up the battle in order to win the war, or do you just fight the battle till you're dead? I mean, live to fight another day. Is there a better way to resolve this than just voting no? How effective is that if there's already 21 votes to pass it? I don't know. That's a question that many people, myself included, have to ask themselves: is do I put up with the fallout from this, from all the liberals who are going to say, "Oh, McCabe now, wants children to have sex"? Well, you're the same people that want children to be groomed in the LGBTQ thing in middle school. So, I don't understand the hypocrisy here. But
it's the same people that want to have the children have that age be able to cut their own body parts off that I think is part of the problem as well. So,
right.
All right, Kevin, hold the line for just a second. Folks, we're out of time for this segment. We got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now. We can finish up with Kevin unless he's got something else to talk about. So, I mean, is that why you ended up voting for it in the long run, Kevin? Is just because you didn't want to have them use it as a bludgeon against you later, or what? I mean, what's the justification here?
Yeah, there's a better way to fix it, I think, rather than just my no vote on the floor would have been meaningless at that point. Sure, it would have sent a message, but it also would have been just one more thing that's lined up against me on, in the newspapers and everywhere else. So do you live to fight another day? Do you live to find a better path forward for this? Probably. And truthfully, Michael, I mean, I hate to say this, and Shower's going to kill me, but this is what happens when you don't have a binding caucus. Everybody's out there voting their own emotions and their own ideas and their own thoughts. The best way to kill this would have been to kill Eastman's title amendment, which I don't understand why he even put that in. If he'd have just left it alone, the bill would have failed because it would be or the amendment would have failed because it would be structurally unsound without a title change. So, the fact that David put that in kind of shows where his head was, and he is voting, he would be voting with them. So now they have that much increase, and then I know where at least 3 of our caucus members would have voted. So the 21 was a foregone conclusion.
Well, I mean, let me just argue with you for a minute on that. I mean,
Sure.
I think the binding caucus rule. I mean, first of all, just from a moral standpoint, I'm morally opposed to it. Yes, it's going to get messy, and yes, we're going to end up with things like this. But I mean, isn't that better in the long run to be able to have these debates and these discussions and allow people to vote their conscience instead of having to bow to the will of the party leadership or the caucus leadership in that regard? I mean, I understand it makes messy things. I mean, I think that was the whole point. That the framers intended was that it be messy. And again, while I may complain about this bill, I'm not going to complain about the fact that not having a binding caucus got us to this point.
No, I'm not complaining so much as explaining. I totally get it, and I don't disagree with that idea either, that everybody should be free to vote the way they want to or the way their districts want to. But right now, the voters are not holding them accountable. So, previous to this, in some of the binding caucuses with previous speakers and previous legislatures, then the speaker and the rules chair and leadership would hold you accountable. Hey, if you don't, you need to straighten up, McCabe. If you don't vote no on this, there will be consequences to you inside our caucus because we've agreed that we are going to vote conservative. This may not be the right case because I'm not so sure a binding caucus would fit in here, but it's an example of how wildly disparate our caucus is with 23 people that are have totally different views.
And I would argue that you would not have been able to put this caucus together if it had required a binding caucus component.
That's very true.
Yeah,
that's very true.
I just don't think you'd have been able to pull it together if you'd had to have that in there.
Sure.
And so I guess what I want to know, Kevin, more than anything is where do we go from here in this regard? So it's going to be on the floor this morning. Do you think it's going to be referred back? Do you think they're going to, give me your Vegas odds here on what do you think is going to happen?
Well, we've already tried to table it once. I think Rep. Sumner made a move to table it or maybe pull it back into committee. So that's a good question. Sarah could pull the bill if she wanted to. This is a pretty important bill. We could just let it go through and let the Department of Law deal with the consequences, or put forth different bills to fix what this thing has screwed up, or put forth different amendments to fix the various pieces of statute. And I don't know. I was back in district this weekend for Tom Anderson's memorial service, so I haven't been in contact with Ledge Legal or anybody regarding this bill much. So we'll know more in a couple hours.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about, or should I just let you go? I don't want to hold you up here. If you got anything else you want to talk about for today, I can bring you back on the other side and we can have a quick chat about it.
There's lots going on this week. The biggest thing I sent to you is the ACLU is here to testify this morning in education on Rep. Allard's bill on transgender women's sports.
Okay.
And then they're going to stay over into CRA tomorrow and attempt to hammer on the Department of Corrections for some of the deaths that have happened inside of our prison system. And they're bringing in Dean Williams, who was the former DOC head that sort of got fired, I think, over SB 91.
Okay.
Maybe fired is the wrong word.
Well, if you want to give us a brief summary of that, you can. I'll hold you through on the other side, and we'll do that before I let you go, and I can hit some of these other stories. Kevin McCabe, our guest, Representative Kevin McCabe from Big Lake. We're going to continue this discussion, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Huh. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, welcome back to the program. The Michael Duke Show continues. Kevin McCabe is actually still our guest. There's going to be some hearings today and this week. It's a busy week. I wanted to give him a chance to quickly hit on a couple of ones that he's concerned about before I let him go and we hit the rest of the headlines for today. Kevin, ACLU's in town. They've got things to say.
Yes, they do. I don't believe they're too happy with Rep. Allard's. I think it's HB 183. It's in education this morning, ACLU, right at 8 o'clock, in fact, and I believe ACLU is going to be testifying or presenting, maybe invited testimony about that bill. That's the bill that protects women from, it's why are we revisiting Title IX? It's Title IX again. It allows women to be women in their own sports and to play sports. And without getting hurt by big guys that and flying elbows, apparently. So they'll be here, and then they're going to stay over until tomorrow, where they will be in community and regional affairs. And the first I heard about it actually was last night. Even though I'm the vice chair, you would think I would know, but they're going to be testifying along with the former DOC commissioner, and it looks like it's going to be on. They're actually going to be presenting, and it looks like it's going to be on the deaths that are happening in our prison system. So
Right.
that should be spicy, should be entertaining, and it's most of all it should be informative. So people need to understand we spend a ton of money on DOC, and part of the reason is the people that come into the corrections department typically are not in the best of health. They've
Right.
been usually they've been criminals for a long time. They haven't been to a doctor or dentist or anything else. I think 2 years ago I questioned the DOC's budget. They had one line item for $880,000, and I said, "What's this?" And they said, "Oh, that's dialysis." And so I looked into it, and it's dialysis for one person, one inmate.
Wow.
$880,000
Well,
bucks, and they have a
because they had $100 million increase in their budget over the last couple of years, and people are starting to ask questions like, "What is going on with that?"
right. And they have a mandate. We have to, I mean, legally, we have to take care of the folks that come here. But boy, is it expensive, because they have, they come in with all these health problems, and we have to fix them up, and it's costing a lot of money. So the sort of corollary I'm trying to make is, one would expect when you have a population that has all these health problems, that the death rate might be higher.
Yeah.
It sucks. Can we prevent it? I don't know.
All right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for your thoughts on this, and we'd love to hear more from you here in the future on what's going on. Appreciate you coming on. 8 a.m. this morning. Allardsville is where? Where is it going to be?
It's in House Education.
House Education.
And
okay.
Yep, and as well, 8 a.m. tomorrow in community and in regional affairs. And I would love to have a lot of people just listening in and commenting and watching on both of them.
All right. Well, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you calling in and giving us the rundown from your perspective. I appreciate that.
All right. Thanks, Michael.
All right. Kevin McCabe, our guest here, calling in on the program on that. Again, I've just got some questions here. I've got some issues. I've got issues on this stuff. All right. Let's get over to our discussion on the House's draft bill. So the House has put forward a draft budget, and they unveiled the budget, and it's got a it's got a sizable PFD in it. I mean, that's great, right? It's got some good. They put a 33-67 split budget together, 33%, 67%. As far as the PFD, right? It's not a 50-50. It's not a 75-25. It's a 33-67. And that's the old Paul Seaton split, for those of you who have forgotten about that. Though that's the 1/3 Paul Seaton split that eventually got him kicked out of office. But, here it is. Senate Finance, not too happy about it, is what I'm hearing right now. Bert Stedman is being quoted in the paper. Same old dividend argument again, he says. He's just not happy about it. This is a proposed budget. Delana Johnson, who manages the House's operating budget on House Finance, said we funded a lot of things that people were concerned about being left out, which includes $175 million for education, $4 million for the victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, $23 million for benefits program for seniors, low-income seniors. That's, I think, the replacement longevity program. $38 million that may be needed to fund the potential shortfall in the marine highway system, and more maintenance funding that could be added for schools with reports of dilapidated facilities in Western Alaska, along with maintenance funding for the university. That's just a few of the big things. If this bill were to pass just as is, which is very unlikely, it would have a dividend check of $2,272. And that's coming from various sources, including the projected fiscal surplus, extra oil revenue, and revenue from the permanent fund itself. So, the Senate on its side wants the 75-25, which would be about $1,000 less, $1,360. And they want that money. Now, what's interesting is that the House typically gets the operating budget and does it, and then the Senate usually takes the lead on the capital budget, and then they swap the bills, normally at the same time. Well, last year, of course, we know what happened, that the Senate combined both the bills into a single bill and then advanced both bills into a turducken and then walked away and said, take it or leave it. Now, according to the ADN, legislative leaders this year have agreed to hammer out the size and scope of both budgets on a set timetable. The House is set to advance the operating budget at the same time the Senate advances the capital budget. That way, neither chamber has both bills at the same time. But I'm already getting word right now that Senate Finance is kind of pissed about this and has already basically said that they're going to delay the capital budget release by at least a week, which means that they want the House to just blithely hand over the operating budget a week ahead of time so they have a week to play. I don't think that's going to fly. I just don't think that that's going to fly right now. Senate Finance is now retaliating by delaying the capital budget release by at least a week. This could be so juicy. This whole thing is done at this point. Oh man, it's going to be my way or the highway all over again. It's going to be my way or the highway all over again. And we'll see where this goes. I mean, I think it would be great if this budget were to pass as is, but you don't really think that they're going to let you have any more of that money, do you? You don't really think that they're going to give you over any of that? You don't think that that's their intent? No, I didn't think so. Okay, we got more coming up. State Senator Robb Myers is going to be joining us in just a hot minute. We're going to talk with him about, well, all this and more, plus the accusation that he's taken a bribe. You heard it last week. We'll play it again before we get into it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Hour 2 is dead ahead. Don't forget to come out and join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Michael Duke Show. Back with more right after this. Okay. Okay. Who's the chair of Senate Finance? Well, there's two co-chairs. It's Bert Stedman and Click Bishop. Those are the co-chairs of Senate Finance. All right. I just don't even know, what to think sometimes. I'm watching this stuff go on and emotions ruling the day and no thoughts of the unintended consequences of our actions and et cetera, et cetera. And then we look at the mean mugging politics and the anger of how dare you don't do what I say with the folks who are in, Senate Finance right now. How dare you don't do what I say? We will punish you. We will. But again, I just don't think that. I mean, if it does come down to where they're delaying, the capital budget release, with the expectation that the House is going to stay on their schedule, I'm not. I don't think that that's possibly gonna. I just don't think that's gonna work out for them. Because if I was in the House and I was part of the leadership, I would basically say, I'm not releasing this until they've released theirs. Until the moment that they're ready to go, I am not releasing this budget until they are ready to release theirs, and then we can swap them directly. Like I said, I always picture that in the hallway, where they show the videos of the aides carrying the budget on a trolley down to the next. I imagine it being a handoff, like they all stop in the middle of the hallways between the two chambers, and one holds it out and the other one holds it out on their side, and they hold it on both sides until they let go, just to, okay, now we can. It's like a hostage exchange. It's it's crazy. All right, let's go over and check in with Robb Myers, who's in the chat room, or he's in the green room right now. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, morning, Michael. We're doing all right so far.
Good. You already got that new penthouse picked out, I'm assuming, with that big bribe that you got and everything. I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, we've been eating steak and drinking Chianti and the whole 9 yards. The last
yes, steak and a nice Chianti. It's every time somebody says Chianti, that's all I can think about. All right, so we all ready to dive into this and talk about this? I want to know more about this delay on the capital budget, because when I heard this, I was like, oh, here we go again. I could just see it happening, because this was the first time that I'd actually seen in writing. I'd heard some things, but I hadn't actually seen it in writing, where it says that the leadership, both bodies, had agreed to hammer out the size and scope of both budgets on a timetable, and that they were set to advance the operating and the capital budgets at the same time, which again reminds me of that picture of the hallway of them, holding each, you let go, I'll let go, kind of thing. And so this is the first time I'd heard that. And now the word on the street is that they're going to delay that. So I'd like some commentary on that too, if you got a second, as we go through.
I can talk a little bit about it. It's going to be mostly speculation on my part.
Yeah, well, that's fine. It's all I want to hear. Whatever speculation and woodpeckering you hear in the background, any of those rumors that are going around, that what do they call that? The telegram, the behind the scenes telegram, the smoke signals that you're reading in the background. You're closer to it than any of us, so we want to hear what's going on. Melody says, "Are they ever on schedule? Are they ever on schedule?" I mean, is their schedule? I mean, really? I mean, all right. So we're ready to go. And then whatever else you would like to talk about this morning, Rob, I'll give you some time here at the end of the show today as well to discuss that. And we could see what's going on. Will Rob buy a truck with that huge dollars? I don't think you can even buy a big truck for $70,000 anymore. I mean, it's that back in the day when I was younger, that would probably buy a big Peterbilt or a Freightliner or something, but not today. Today it's six. Yeah.
Yeah. You're looking at 200, 250, something like that for a brand new tractor.
Yeah. It's not a cheap investment. That's for sure. So it's good. All right. Well, hold the line, Rob. I'll pull you back into the green room and we'll get back to you here in just a hot second. We'll get things, ready to go. All right, my friends. Well, like, share, subscribe if you're on YouTube, ring the little bell thing. You can also like there. It's good if you like it. If you engage with those videos, the more you engage, the more the algorithm likes me. So there you go. I'm a slave to the algorithm, apparently. And yeah, Facebook is still screwing up. Some people are still having a hard time finding the show on Facebook. They're not getting notifications. If you're not getting a notification, then you just go ahead and subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube, because at least you'll get notifications there. You'll at least be able to find the show. But yes, we broadcast every day on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So feel free to jump on board and go do that thing. Just go out there and enjoy it. All right. Well, it's time to get back into it. shall we? Let's continue on. Comments aren't working for him. I saw your comment earlier, Jeremy, so I know I was at least seeing it. Maybe you weren't seeing your own comment. But there you go. Gotta go. Back with more. The Michael Duke Show.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Yep, live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska. This is your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning and welcome to the Monday edition of the show. Ooh, man, 37 degrees. I'm loving it. I'm looking for that green. Just bring me the green. That's all I can say right now. As we get ready to go through hour one already in the can. That was a fast hour. Happy Seward's Day, somebody said. Yeah, I forgot it's Seward's Day. So happy Seward's Day to everybody today. And thank you for coming out and joining us. In this hour, we're going to be joined here in just a hot second by State Senator Robb Myers, who's coming on board to talk with us today about a variety of things, all the stuff we just chatted about in hour one, what's going on with the Senate side of the budget, and more. But of course, we would be remiss if we didn't ask him about the commentary from the Fairbanks president, the school board president, who has essentially said that Rob and others, they're bad people. I'm going to play the piece before we jump to Rob, just so that you have some context. This is Brandy Hardy at the school board. This is after they decided, and they had to take a vote. It was a late night. They did everything else. They're voting to close Ben Eielson High School, at the end of the year, because they don't have enough money. And she's got some blame to go around, blame is fine. But when you cast dispersions, I think she stepped out of line, quite honestly, and she should be, at least should be stepped down as president. But this is Brandy Hardy. This is what she had to say about the interior legislators who voted against the veto override. And this was last Tuesday night.
To the other representatives, Representative Tomaszewski, Senator Myers, Representative Kronk, and I slightly give Representative Prax a pass because he didn't vote for it to begin with. So at least you stood by your vote. I am so utterly disappointed. Fairbanks deserved better. You are part of our community, and we were clear what we needed. And you let us all down. And I've heard rumors, and mind you, they're rumors, so newspapers in the audience, I'm fully aware, and don't quote me on it, that you might have sold us down the river for a $70,000 campaign donation. I hope it was worth it.
So, I had no problem with anything she said right up to that last part. You want to, this is, and of course, this apparently came out of a newsletter that Zach Fields has put forward that said the governor was going to fight against anybody that didn't vote to uphold his veto and yada, yada, yada. But it's just, this is some crazy stuff. So we're going to get the hot take straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Robb Myers is our guest. He joins us this morning to discuss this and more.
You call me a horse?
Maybe. if the horseshoe fits, then maybe you should. Anyway, Robb Myers, good morning, my friend. How are you doing?
Oh, we're doing pretty good so far today, Michael. It's a Monday, but yeah, we'll keep plugging along here.
It's a Monday. Hey, don't worry. You got a long weekend coming up, right? With Easter, don't you guys get a break for Easter, like a 4-day break or something? So,
yeah, we usually do take a long weekend for Easter.
Yeah, good. So, I mean, I'm glad to hear everybody needs a little bit of a relaxation every now and then. All right, Rob. Well, I called you a horse. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. So, I mean, I guess this is it right here. And I mean, look, we know that this is kind of a ridiculous thing to go on about, but I mean, you're a public official. You're not just a public official. You're the presiding officer of a body, and you blatantly know that this is a rumor or something, and yet you're still going to throw this out there. We had some discussions about it last week after the fact, and the general consensus was she needed to at least be removed from being the presiding officer, and a question of whether she should step down or not. What are your thoughts on this? Give me your take on this. As you heard this, I'm sure your ears were burning on this. So give me your thoughts on this.
Yeah, somebody sent me a little clip of the video a couple hours after it happened on Tuesday night. And, that was a great thing to get right before I was going to bed. So, as an elected official, I expect to some extent, being called out, on my votes or on my public statements. Okay, that's fine. That's part of the territory. I expect some name calling. It's a little childish, but it happens. But what was said here was way beyond that, and especially since we're talking about another elected official saying it in a very public meeting. We're not just talking about passing rumors around, off the record. Somebody talking to their friends here. We're talking about on the record in a public meeting, and
from the podium, from the dais, from the presiding officer's chair, right?
Correct. From the presiding officer of an elected body, and accusing myself and either 2 or 3 other guys, it was a little unclear in the way she phrased it, of what is a federal crime. It is a flat out federal crime. If I had done what she is accusing me of doing, the FBI could come after me. Now, I will make it flat out clear. Not only did I not take a bribe, there was no bribe offered. Nobody came to me and said, hey, if you change your vote, we'll give you any money. Nobody even came to me and said, if you don't change your vote, then we're going to campaign against you. Nobody said anything like that to me one way or the other. But the federal definition of bribery is very simple. It's the criminal offense of bribery involves offering or giving something of value to another person, usually a public official, with the purpose of that conduct being to influence that person in their official capacity. So to influence my vote. Now, it's one thing to come to me after I take a vote and say, hey, I appreciate your vote. I'm going to support you in your next election. Or, oh, I hated your vote. I'm going to support your opponent. That's all legit. But to come to somebody beforehand and say, hey, if you vote a certain way, I will give you directly, or I'll give your campaign X amount of money. That is completely and totally illegal according to federal law. And like I said, nobody even approached me and said anything like that. Now, if they had approached me, I'd be turning them down. I'm sitting out here in the super minority because I turned down joining a binding caucus. You really think that a campaign donation is going to make that much of a difference to me?
I was just going to say the only way you could have that be legit is if there was a binding caucus. Then you could be influenced for your vote to get stuff. That'd be the only way you could get away with it.
No, so I'm sitting out here on the outside because I turned down the possibility of a nicer office or a committee chairmanship or something like that, So, and to top it all off, look, with the Senate, after the last redistricting, you take half the senators and say you're up in 2 years and the other half you're up in 4. Well, I'm up in 4. It doesn't even make sense for me to take a campaign donation right now because I'm not even up for a re-election until 2026. This is just flat out nuts.
Yeah, I mean, and I think at some point, and like I said, I mean, I think somebody should be saying something like, maybe you should be handing the gavel to somebody else. Maybe, okay, don't step down, as an elected representative, fine, but there needs to be a reorganization. If this is what the presiding officer is doing from the podium, you know, that somebody needs to call her on the carpet on that.
That, you know, it's a very privileged position to be able to say things on the record in a public setting, and to flat out lie about somebody's conduct and somebody's character in that way and accuse somebody of a crime, you know, then that is very conduct unbecoming the office. And there at a minimum, I think, needs to be a public apology. And the school board should be looking at each other and saying, is this the person that we want to be representing us? Is this the person that we want to be the face of the organization? Because, you know, among other things, that's what the president, you know, the presiding officer of a body is. It's the face of the organization. And is that where you want somebody to be? Is that the type of person that you want in that position?
Have you heard anything from the from the school board, or from anybody else? Have you heard any kind of has anything been said to you about any of this?
I got one friend on the school board who was talking to me a little bit over the weekend, who's unhappy about the way things have gone. I don't know if one person is going to be enough to change anything there, but I know that it's at least going to be talked about. Whether or not things change, I don't know. So yeah, there you go. There's Melissa saying, yes, send some emails in to talk about what is going on here. I can't remember if they've got another meeting. Their meetings are on Tuesdays. I can't remember if the next meeting is tomorrow night or Tuesday next week.
Yeah, Melissa, who's on the school board, says emails need to be sent to schoolboard@k12northstar.org. If you're as outraged as I am and as anybody else is, you need to send an email to schoolboard@k12northstar.org. And say that she needs to be reprimanded. I mean, again, I think she should step down on this as a presiding officer, if nothing else, just because that was egregious. And saying that it's a rumor ahead of time does not alleviate your responsibility.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. If you already know it's a rumor ahead of time, why the heck are you saying it in public?
Yeah, no. I've heard plenty of rumors that I've never given voice to on this program because I can't substantiate it. And while the rumor that I'm hearing may play into my own personal philosophies and be like, yes, if I can't prove it, I can't just throw it around out there you know, doing that kind of stuff. Next meeting is April 12th. So a week from tomorrow will be the next meeting of the school board. So you've got a week to get your emails in. And to get stuff be said about that. Jennifer Kronk said, how about an email from your attorney? That would be an interesting thing. I mean, and that does raise a question of, you know, I mean, I know you're a public official, but she's a public official and there's a higher standard, but there's still a question about libel. I mean, there's still a question about impugning somebody's character in the public forum like that. And, you know, you got to stand behind that kind of stuff when you say that stuff.
Yeah, myself and a couple of other folks, we've been in indirect contact with a couple of attorneys, and the question is kind of the way that she couched it. Is that going to be enough to make it worthy of a legal charge? And they're trying to kind of parse out the words a little bit. But no, we're talking about it. It's definitely getting discussed.
Words have consequences is all I'm saying. Words do have consequences, and sometimes real world consequences at that as well. All right. Well, again, I mean, I didn't even know to talk to you. I didn't even need to talk to you to know that what she was saying was blatantly false. But, you know, the thing is that there's people out there who are not as informed who might be like, oh, really? I didn't know that they did that. They took money to shut. And let's talk about this for a second, because I was commenting on the post was made on the Fairbanks, Alaska group, which is a Facebook group about Fairbanks, obviously. And, oh, man, people were just so, how could you close the school? How could you do this? And my kids and their kids and those kids and, oh, those damn charter schools and those homeschoolers stealing all the money from the regular schools and all this. I mean, it just became this crazy hate fest on anybody. You know, I mean, first of all, charter schools and homeschooling are doing better academically than any of the other schools out there. Why wouldn't you want to emulate that with your regular schools? And yet, you know, nobody seemed to get that. So, they asked supposedly for this money, and yet you guys didn't deliver. Give me some backstory here. What's going on with that?
So obviously school funding has been in the.
Wait a second, Rob. I just realized that I just looked at the clock and said I can't let you go. So hold the line. Hold that thought, and we'll come back to that question here in just a hot second. I'm a slave to the clock, and it goes way too fast sometimes. So we're going to continue in just a moment. Robb Myers is our guest, state senator from District Q. Was District B, now District Q. Almost got it down. Back with more. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We'll be back right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
David says, how about Rep. Zach Fields being held accountable for his describing Dunleavy as a terrorist and making a jihad against public schools? That was the source of the Fairbanks School Board President's remarks, which, we saw the commentary there. I mean, at some point you're like, really? I mean, terrorist, jihad, I know there's some hyperbole running around here, but man, that seems like that's a little bit out of line right there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, name calling is distasteful but legal. So there's not a whole lot you can do other than send nasty emails.
I'm just looking through some of the comments here. It was emotional idiocy, perhaps, but still, if so, and there was no immediate public apology, no, by golly, she needs to answer. So does Zach Fields. But again, Fields has couched his stuff in terms of, again, the hyperbole and the hyperbolic name calling. So it is what it is. Oh, this is what you signed up for, right, Rob?
I know there's been a couple of times over the last few years where, I've been talking to a colleague or two and somebody's going, man, can you believe people behave this way? And I look at them and go, and the worst part is we volunteered for this.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like
we
I
fought
said,
hard for this.
People are like, well, what's it like being an elected official? And I'm like, well, see that door there? Just slam your hand in that door repeatedly until you're unconscious from the pain. And when you wake up, start again. That's what it's like. And they just look at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's just like that. It's so great. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Yeah, Melissa said, we spent money and campaigned for this crap. Yep. You did.
Exactly. I was talking to a couple of friends over the weekend about it, and this topic and a couple others came up, and I said, it makes me want to go back to driving my truck because when you're out there driving the truck and the weather goes bad on you or something like that, I mean, it sucks, it's annoying, but you can't really get mad at anything. It's the weather. It just is. When it's somebody's specific actions, that raises the emotion to a whole nother level.
It does make you just want to put your earbuds in and climb in the truck and just be like, quiet, peace, my audiobook, my podcast. Oh, the weather's bad. Let me pull over here and I'll just wait the weather out for the plows to come. Oh, I'll just go back.
Yeah.
You're just like, what was I thinking? We appreciate what you're doing and the slings and arrows that you're taking out there as well. It's crazy, man. It's crazy that this is what's going on. But I definitely, as I look at this, and I just wonder where people are at. I just wonder where people are at when realizing you've got a declining enrollment. You've got people who are jumping ships for alternatives at a massive rate. Part of that's due to COVID. Part of that's due to the exposure of, oh, it wasn't really that hard to homeschool my kids. Oh, it wasn't really that. Oh, there are alternatives out there. Some of that's there, but some of it's just frustration with the system. And you've got this massive, and you expect to get more money for fewer students and a crappy product. You're producing a substandard product with a 48th, 49th percentile achievement score and a 1 in 4 not graduating rate. And you wonder why you stop, at what point do you just be like, we still deserve the money? We still deserve the money.
Well, I mean, I think the declining population part is part that we're not talking about enough. And especially, if you want to compare that to how much we are spending on schools, I've been getting emails saying, hey, I'm leaving, or I know people that are leaving because our schools are crappy and we haven't been funding them and whatever. The funny part is that the Fairbanks population started to decline even at the same time that we were increasing our funding on schools. So there's a lot more going on here. The Fairbanks population peaked about 2013, and our school funding peaked in, I can't remember if it was 2015 or 2017 off the top of my head, once you adjust for inflation and stuff. It's just like there's a lot more going on here than just money.
Yeah, no. And I was part of that outflow in 2014. I was like, yep, I'm done. It for me, it had nothing to do with schools. There's a lot of other reasons, but it's part of that exodus. And I think they just need to be cognizant of it. I mean, they need to understand you can't have fewer students and keep demanding more money and expect that it's going to continue forever. I think none of the school districts can expect that. Right. All right. Robb Myers is our guest. We're going to continue the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry, not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Huh. Whew, I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Yeah, not your daddy. I am a daddy, but not yours. It's how it works. All right, welcome back. Robb Myers is our guest, state senator. Before we went to break, we were so rudely interrupted by the break. I was asking Rob, the comments were, well, we asked for all this money and we need it, and they're just not delivering the money. And again, this goes regardless of what the scholastic scores are, regardless of everything else, the population decline. I mean, so many different things. But give us your thoughts on this. I mean, Rob, did they ask for it? Did they give you the, what did they say? Were they clear about what they wanted for education in Fairbanks? Give us the rundown here.
That's part of the story here that hasn't been covered a whole lot is no, they haven't necessarily been clear about it. So last year, I had a couple of folks from the district in my office on this couch behind me, and we were talking about what the district needs because everybody was talking about education, and so all the districts a lot of the districts were sending their folks through here. And so they came through and they told me they needed somewhere in the neighborhood of $450 to $500 raise in the BSA. I went, okay, all right, that's better than the 1,000 that they were proposing last year. Eventually they settled on the 680, and that 680 got sent over to the House, and they had a couple of hearings on it in House Finance, and they had the head of the Fairbanks School District's finance department talking in there, and they said, oh, well, is the 680 going to work for you guys? And he said, yeah. And then they had somebody brought up that there was a resolution that was floating around saying that they needed 270 over 2 years. And then there was some discussion whether or not that resolution had been from that year or from the year prior. And so, they had this number out this year of was it 1413 or something like that.
Right.
And at the same time, I've got parents out there that are emailing me saying 1413 the whole way. And at the same time, I'm hearing from the district, let's see, 680, 450, or 270. No, there wasn't really a clear message there over this time period. Ultimately, what we have to talk about, we were talking about this a little bit over the break, is that we've got declining enrollment. And if you have declining enrollment, you're going to need fewer schools in the long run. And fighting to, I'm not a fan of the schools that they picked. I think that there was some politics that went into some of which ones they picked. If you start looking at the areas.
No, that would never happen.
But at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, we're going to be closing schools because we're having fewer kids. The Fairbanks population peaked in 2013, and it's been trending down since then. Then you've got COVID that hits, and people see what's happening in the schools a little bit more, and they decide that they're not going to put up with it, and so they start doing the homeschool stuff, or they do private school or they do charter school or something. And, just flat out, the people we've got fewer kids in school is what it boils down to. And you're going to get less money from the state based on that. Because again, this is base student allocation. Fewer students means less allocation. And I mean, we can keep raising the BSA all that we want, but at what point do you say, look, guys, we've got schools that are at 50-60% of capacity. This doesn't make financial sense. We're already letting some teachers go. The more buildings you keep up and the more teachers you have to let go. I'd rather hold on, hold on to teachers.
Right, because of all the support staff and everything else and all the teachers, all I saw in this Facebook post was, the school class sizes and this and that. But some of these schools are at 40% capacity. I mean, if the school is at 40% capacity, why are you not consolidating schools down to where they're closer to 80 or 90%, giving you a little wiggle room and close down the schools? Yes, you'll have to let some people go, but at least you're not going to let the teachers go, so you'll have enough teachers to teach. I mean, I just don't understand this mindset. And then everybody getting hung up on their I always went to that school, so I think my kid should go to that school. That school should always be open regardless of everything. Doesn't matter that there's, it's at 28% capacity or whatever. You cannot continue to live high on the hog when you don't have the students to do it. And like you said, increase the BSA all you want. At some point, the decline in the number of students, because it's based on a per student average payment, is going to be lower than you're not going to have the money. It's not going to be there.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to put money into buildings that you're not using. I had one elementary school principal in here earlier this year who told me that he had 7 empty classrooms in his building. That right there tells me, okay, we've got a problem where we may be supporting more buildings than we need. And that, if we talk about, we want the money to go into classrooms, I'd rather have the money go into classrooms than into building maintenance. Do you need buildings? Yeah, sure. No question. But at what point does your physical plant outnumber your student population? That's where you got to start asking yourself if it's smart to keep it going.
Well, and we already know that administratively, most school districts have 2 to 3 administrative staff for every teaching staff, every teaching position. And so the question is, and that's been coming on for the last 30 years, where the enrollment continues to kind of edge down, but the administrative numbers keep going up. And the question becomes, is this really about teaching the students, or is this about making sure that people maintain their positions or have jobs, et cetera, et cetera? When all these administrators or teaching people are there asking you questions and telling you need to up the BSA, I mean, was there ever a question of, okay, well, what are you going to spend the $270, the $450, the $680 on? Or is that going into the classroom? Was there any other discussion about that? Was there discussions about accountability for the outcomes?
So I had one school official bring that up, and not from the Fairbanks area. It was the superintendent from Haines dropped by last year, and now Haines is actually doing well. It's either the best or second best performing district in the state, from what I remember. And whereas the state average is something like a little over a third of our students are performing at grade level, Haines was something closer to 70%. About where kind of where it should be. And so he comes in and he says, yeah, I need some extra money because I need to give my teachers a raise and I need to pay for higher fuel costs. And I go, from a district that's performing, that sounds reasonable. But from districts that are not performing, who can't even give me that much, that's really hard to swallow,
And of course, the bigger question becomes, the more buildings we have, the more maintenance, the more upkeep. Now we're hearing stories about all these schools in Western Alaska that aren't being maintained. What's going on with the deferred maintenance? You know that this is a topic for me. And you were the one that corrected me the other day, because I said, I know Fairbanks has $250 million in deferred maintenance, something like $260 million in deferred maintenance. And I said, I thought the state had over almost $1 million. And you said, oh, no. it's a lot higher than. How much deferred maintenance are we looking at in the state right now, Rob?
So the last time I looked at the full list was in 2022, and we were at a little over 10 billion statewide. Now, that deferred maintenance is an interesting piece to bring up because, there's been comments being made over the last week or so after the veto override failed. People saying, well, we can put some more one-time money in, but one-time money isn't useful. And I'm sitting here going, one-time money would be very useful because you guys are bringing up the deferred maintenance, and deferred maintenance is usually a one-time thing. You take a big chunk of change. If you get a big windfall, that's really one of the smart things to do with it is you take that windfall and you put it into deferred maintenance to catch you back up. And so to hear somebody say, well, deferred maintenance, or to hear somebody say that one-time money isn't good, and I'm going, well, in the long run, I can kind of understand what you're getting at. But right now, if one of the things that you're complaining about is deferred maintenance, one-time money serves that purpose just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that these people keep taking the monies that are allocated for maintenance on these facilities and using it to pay for something else, that's just, at some point, that's just malfeasance. At some point, you're just like, it's just wrong. And then I had a conversation this weekend with a friend of mine who works in the roofing industry here in the South Central area, and he's telling me a story about he gets called out to work on a building, building a new school building that's 11 months old, and he's like, "Why are we here? This building is brand new. It's still under warranty. Why are we here fixing this roof?" And they're like, "Oh, well, we want to make sure it's done right." Well, it's warranty. You don't have to. And he's like, "Oh man," he goes, "There was another one where they said, we don't know if this building's going to stay, if we're going to keep using this or whatever, but go ahead and fix the roof." And he's like, "We could have put the hot patch on the roof for $30,000 to get it through." He says, instead they did a $200 and something thousand job. And 2 years later, they decided to stop using this particular building. I mean, it's just like, it's not their money apparently. So it's okay. Just spend what you got. And this is the kind of stuff that drives us all bonkers.
Yeah, kind of like what we did with Denali Elementary in Fairbanks. We did a refurbish, and then 5-6 years later, we tore it down and built a whole brand new one.
We still had like 12 or 13 years of bonds that we were paying on in a building that had been razed to the ground. And you're like, what? I mean, why? I don't even understand. But they kept telling us, we need that new school. We need that new school. Inlet View in Anchorage, the same kind of thing. They were going to tear it down and build a new one. They're trying to float another bond right now in Anchorage to do a full-on $20 million renovation. They were going to spend 50, I think, on a new building. Now it's only going to be 20 million to renovate and refurbish. I mean, why do we let them keep getting away with this whole thing of deferred maintenance? I mean, $10 billion in deferred. I mean, just let that sink in for a minute. $10 billion in deferred maintenance. That's on facilities that have already been built.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention anything new that they're trying to put together.
Yeah, it's kind of scurry, and well, it's a lot scurry, and this is the problem. Part of the problem, and I think we talked about this the last time we chatted. Is it really helps your reelection if you can stand there at and do a ribbon cutting on we built this brand new building, or we do a ribbon cutting on this big new addition that we put on, or something like that. But you don't do a ribbon cutting on replacing the HVAC. You don't do a ribbon cutting on, hey, we patched the roof. And unfortunately, that's what's happened in Alaska. We fell into this pattern probably back in the 80s of that. This is part of how we get reelected is we bring home the bacon, and it doesn't necessarily matter if the bacon is something that's actually going to be useful in the long run, or if it's just something that it makes a nice publicity op and it keeps some guys employed for a couple of summers. And that's what happens when you have a government that has a ton of money and doesn't have to really be accountable to the private sector for where it's getting its money from. Right. And just has so much money that it just kind of overshadows almost every other economic activity that's going on in the state. Hey, right. I got you a job for a couple of years because I brought home the bacon on this project.
Senator Robb Myers is our guest. We're going to go into the break here, but when we come back, I want to talk a little bit. The House has put out their draft budget. They're not happy about it. 33-67, and I'm already hearing rumblings that the Senate is a little pissy about it. So we'll get Rob's take on that and what he hears. Now I hear that the Senate Finance may be delaying the release of the capital budget as well. We'll see what comes out of that as we come forward. Robb Myers, our guest, we'll get his take on that in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
All right, Robb Myers is our guest here on the program. Ready to go. I mean, I don't know, Rob. I'm just at this point, I'm just shaking my head like nobody wants to talk about accountability. Shower, I know, put that amendment in here when it was being voted on at one point, and to put some accountability in with any kind of increase, and they riddled him full of bullets. The same thing happened on the House side when they talked about putting some accountability in. And at some point, somebody's got to ask the question, what are you doing with this money specifically? And is it going to produce a better product? And if the answer is no, but they keep using the children as the reason. Oh, we've got to protect the children. We've got to do that. But they're still doing, I mean, if you're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, that is the definition of insanity. And yet that's what they say. We just need more money. More, M-O-A-R. If you just give us more money, it will fix it.
There's two things that stand out to me. One is that, I have district officials coming to me and saying, mostly school board members coming to me and saying, okay, we don't want any more unfunded mandates. We need to get rid of some of these unfunded mandates. And I go, okay, I can get behind that. I can easily see somebody passed a law 20, 30 years ago that, maybe it made sense then and it doesn't make sense now, or maybe it's a good idea, but it's not as important as some other things. So let's repeal some of that and get rid of some of this, some of the things that we're requiring you to spend money on. And I asked a couple of school board members last year and a couple of school board members this year, can you give me some examples of that? So far, they've only asked for one thing. They want me to repeal the READS Act. And I'm sitting here going, you want me to repeal the one thing that we have done in probably 15 or 20 years that actually directly pertains to student achievement in school, and that actually is working already. We've already got some numbers showing it's working. And that's the one thing you want me to repeal? Yeah, I have a hard time taking that seriously. Two is, I go back to when I was in school. So I graduated from high school in Fairbanks in 2001. And I had my staff take a look at this a couple summers ago, grab some numbers, and they were comparing the spending back then and the achievement level back then to where it is now. And back when I was in school, late 90s, early 2000s, our achievements were kind of middle of the pack nationwide. Nothing major to write home about, but getting the job done. And when you look at the spending compared to what we're spending now, after you adjust for inflation, we're spending about roughly 30% more now than we were back then. And I'm sitting here going, we're spending more and getting worse results. What the heck's going on here, guys?
Well, all I have to do is look at the graduation rate. I remember when Sarah Palin came to Fairbanks, they were trying to save Eielson and everything else, and they did the big thing at the Carlson Center where she spoke and everything. And she talked specifically at that point. I remember very clearly her talking about the 74% graduation rate and how that was a travesty that 1 in 4 students weren't graduating and that they were going to work on that and fix that. That was, God, what was that? 15 years ago now? Something like that. Yeah, about 15 years ago. And yet you get up to today And the graduation rate has soared up to 76%, 77%. Still 1 in 4 essentially is not graduating. We've got some problems, and you want to gut the one thing that's actually showing results. Oh, it just happens to be the one thing that had some accountability in it. I see. That's part of the problem there. And I think that is, I think that's ridiculous. I think we should have more accountability. This is part of the problem. Nobody's willing to admit that something is fundamentally flawed in the education system that we have right now. Something's wrong. Something's broken. Yeah. You can't just keep throwing exponentially more, and regardless of what the papers say, there's been a 30% increase in education funding over the last 18 years. It hasn't been flat funded. They've been getting one-time funding all the time. Every year they get another tranche of money. 30% increase over the last 18 years, but we still can't get all the students to graduate. We have no accountability, and we're still in the 47th, 48th, 49th percentile for math and reading and science and all this kind of stuff. I mean, we've got to admit that there's something wrong.
You know, something that's popped up on my radar in the last couple of years that I think we need to start talking about is not every state funds their school system the same way. And now there's a lot of states that fund it pretty similar to how we do with this base student allocation and then some modifiers. But there's another way that 10 or 15 states do it where they fund to specific costs. And they say, all right, here's how much you get per student for teacher salaries. Here's how much you get per student for overhead administration. Here's how much you get for building maintenance. Here's how much you get for transportation. Here's how much you get for supplies and materials. And that allows the state to target that money a lot more. And so we say, oh, building costs are going up. Okay, we can target money there. Energy costs are going up. Okay, we can target there. We need to pay our teachers better. We can target there. I think that's something we need to start talking about.
I would not disagree with that at all. Oh, the pushback on that, I can hear it already. All right, we're going to here we go, jumping back into it, the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. All right, we're back to the final segment here of today's program. Robb Myers is our guest, state senator from District Q up in the interior. Rob, the House Finance put out their draft budget for the operating budget, and you could hear collective gasps across Juneau when they dared to come out with a 67-33 split, meaning the government only gets 67% of the money from the permanent fund earnings versus the 75 that they've been wanting to versus the 50% that Hammond envisioned. But, and that was going to increase and it's going to cause problems. And just weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. First of all, tell me what you're hearing about the draft budget and the reaction that you're hearing in the halls of the Senate side of the world over there.
Yeah, it sounds like the Senate is not happy with the House. In the grand scheme of things, because of that permanent fund dividend split that they've come up with, which, shoot, I mean, that's even lower than what the House did last year. You know, when House Finance put the budget out from the House, it was a 50-50 dividend. Of course, that was down from what the governor put in, which was a statutory dividend. But even doing the 33. 67 or however it works out to, it's a little bit less than that, I think. But the Senate's not happy with that, and I think they are worried that it made the Senate look bad. And that it's been very interesting talking about the budget and our spending over the last couple of weeks. So Senate Finance had a hearing. I think Brad mentioned this at one point a couple of weeks ago, where they said basically, yeah, we have almost no headroom. We had $55 million to spare after taking, already passed bills or bills about to pass into account. And a couple of things have happened since then. One is the spring revenue forecast came out, said we've got about 80 million more than we initially thought. I don't necessarily trust that because I see what oil markets do sometimes. Then on top of that, the governor vetoed SB 140, and then we upheld that veto. So that's spending that doesn't necessarily happen, but I think a lot of that may happen anyway. You've got, for example, the internet bill that's going to be on the floor of the Senate today. That's 40 million by itself. Even without a BSA increase, most people are talking about doing one-time money into the budget, and that's still, if you go back to the 680 amount, that's still 175 million. Whether or not that's what it ends up being in the end, I don't know. We still got a long way to go between here and there. There's different pieces that pop up in there where it still may get close to the $240 million price tag of SB 140. Might not quite get all the way there. But yeah, it's a case of how much can you really hold on to? Hey, oil prices are up in the low 80s instead of, in the mid 70s where they were last year. We don't really know. That's hard to guess. And, I've been seeing some stuff, like some extra drill rigs are coming online down in the States. That brings some more supply online. So that's going to lower prices. Who the heck knows what happens in the Middle East or in Ukraine, if that's going to make things go up or down. But to me, it makes a little bit of sense to say, all right, this is one, again, going back to this is one-time money. It makes some sense to me to say, all right, let's take some one-time money and put it into our private economy, which is languishing, rather than putting it into the state's budget where we know it's just going to keep growing.
Right.
So that's kind of one of the conundrums that we're in down here, and how some people are unhappy with that budget choice because it does kind of to some extent set a precedent for later on. And the Senate has said last year and this year, well, our fiscal plan is 25-75, and then they put out some slides a couple of weeks ago that says, oh shoot, even the 25-75 may not last for very much longer.
Exactly. I mean, duh. We've been saying that on this program for a while, but hey, good. Welcome to the party, pal. This is the first time I've ever actually seen in writing discussion of what happened last year and the ramifications of it. Of course, last year was the turducken when the Senate got a hold of both the operating and the capital budget, slammed them together in a single bill, left them on the table and walked away and said, take it or leave it, sweetheart. That definitely had some hard feelings. And in the paper, it's reported now that legislative leaders had come to an agreement to basically hammer out the size and scope of both budgets on a set timetable, meaning we'll have it and then we'll give it to you, and that they were basically set to release the operating budget and the capital budget at the same time to each other. But now I'm hearing rumors that the Senate Finance is talking about delaying the capital budget in, I guess, retribution, because they want to, so what are you hearing about that? Are you hearing that as well?
Yeah, so I'd heard that there was a written agreement at the beginning of the year between the two bodies to pass the two budgets together, do what we call passing them in the hallways. You were kind of alluding to that earlier before I came on, where most of the documents are electronic these days, and so you don't have to have a full hand cart full of file boxes. But this is kind of one of the weird things. There is still one official copy of every bill, and the budget is a bill, and that's in a folder, and that copy is the only one that actually counts, where you have to put everybody's signatures on to say this passed, it didn't pass, things like that. And so they would take those file folders and have probably the Senate secretary and the House clerk meet in the hallway and hand them off and go back the other way. And, now we've passed the budgets to the other bodies. And it's my understanding that the House was supposed to pass the operating budget here in about 2.5 weeks or so. And I mean, that's about normal. House usually passes the budget around mid-April or so. But now that may have gotten thrown off. I don't know. We will have to see what happens. If the Senate is unhappy, that is one lever that they can pull to express their unhappiness, is violating that agreement. And I don't know where that's going to leave us. Are we going to go back to staring at each other the last week of session? Again, that's a possibility. It's not The emotions around here this has been a very weird year. The emotions usually kind of everybody comes in the first part of the year and we're all kind of buddy, and the emotions kind of slowly ramp up over the course of the year and until we're about ready to pull each other's hair out by May. This year we kind of hit the ground running, and I mean, you can say we hit the ground running on work, but that also means that we hit the ground running with the emotions high right out of the gate.
Right.
And so people are already not happy with each other.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, I don't see the House capitulating this year to the Senate. I don't see them passing over the budget until the Senate passes over their budget. I could see that already. I mean, it could be a stalemate. I mean, it could literally be loggerheads in the hallway. I've got mine, you've got yours. We pass it over or not. And if the Senate is pissy about this, and Senate Finance and company do that, I mean, what does that mean? Are we stuck here? Are we stuck to a government shutdown? Are we stuck to because they won't move forward on the budget? What happens there?
I truly don't know. I mean, again, this is an election year, so people are going to want to get out of here to go campaign. Not to mention we want to get out of here just because we want to get out of here too. So that's going to be pressing on certain people's minds. My theory on it is if we come down to the end of session and the budget negotiations are still going on, I'm probably going to go home for a little while at that point, because if you're asking the most junior member of the super minority what to do, we are in a lot more world of a hurt than most people realize. I'll come back and vote whenever there's a vote, but we'll have to see where that leaves us. I think people are going to want to get out of here, but whether or how exactly that's going to work out, I don't know. There's still a lot of pieces up in the air. We just saw that with SB 140 about, the House had a plan the first week of session and it got derailed and everything kind of went sideways. And, that can happen around here. I don't know how that's going to play out. We've still got almost 2 months between now and adjournment. So,
yeah. Well, we're down to the last minute and a half here or so, Rob. So final thoughts for what we're looking at. What should we be watching? Give me your final words here.
So I guess what I would be watching is how many people are talking about the budget for this year and how many people are talking about the budget for 10 years down the road. Because again, that is what we have not been talking about. I pointed some stuff out on the Senate floor last year when we were debating the budget. I said, we had this budget in 2022 that some people were calling monstrous and unsustainable and irresponsible. And what did we do? Well, we basically funded the agencies at the same level or a slight bit higher, funded the capital budget at a slight bit lower. And we said, this is a responsible budget. And I went, what the heck, guys? At the same time that we know that our revenues are not looking good here for the next few years, maybe at about 10 years out, we've got some more oil coming online, but for right now, it's not looking the greatest. And, we're fighting over this year and we're ignoring, what's coming down the pike.
Even the Senate's saying that 75-25 is not sustainable. Duh. The 10-year forecast has been telling us that for the last 5 years, and nobody's looking at it. Nobody's watching it. Senator Robb Myers, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you coming on board. Good luck. Don't buy any new trucks, okay? I know you can't afford it right now. Thank you. Thank you for coming on board. All right, folks, we're out of time. Tomorrow's another day. Tuesday, Brad Keithley, Chris Story. The Michael Duke Show continues. You're on for Common Sense Radio. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. All right, Rob, any final thoughts before I let you go here?
Whew. Boy, I was talking to you just like doing an hour-long sprint sometimes.
I know. Busy, isn't it? Busy.
Yeah. So, this is the part that always bugs the crap out of me is we look at the 1-year budget cycle. We look at the 2-year reelection cycle. For senators and governor, it's a 4-year reelection cycle. But I mean, since we reorganize every 2 years, that we're still looking at the 2-year reelection cycle anyway. And nobody's really thinking and talking about 10, 20 years out. Hey, if we continue on this trend, what does it mean? There's a few people, you got me and Ben Carpenter and a few others that are talking about that sort of thing, but it gets hung up. And that if we don't address that long-term issue and the long-term issues we have with our spending, the long-term issues we have with our private economy, I mean, shoot, what's the point here? Why don't we just pack it all in?
Yeah, no, it's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating to watch, especially when the numbers are right there and have been there and nobody seems to be looking at. Sometimes they'll say the quiet part out loud. Oh, the 75-25, that's not even going to work. Yeah, pretty soon it's going to be 100. And then a couple of years later, it'll be, well, you guys got to pay your fair share. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Robb Myers, thank you, my friend. Good to talk with you. We will see you in the future. Thank you.
Yep. Catch you around, Michael.
Appreciate you coming on board. All right, folks, we are out of time for today. We got to go. The Michael Duke Show continues tomorrow. As I said, be kind, love one another, live well. We'll see you then.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.